Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. This is a question and answer session for February 12th. Public Health Director Annette Rodriguez and Dr. Chris Bird are addressing questions received this week. Please feel free to add your follow-up questions to chat. Start off today by wishing everyone a happy Lunar New Year. Today's questions are going to focus on allergies, efficacy, vaccine groups and availability, and a healthy lifestyle check-in. Dr. Bird?
All right. Director Rodriguez, let's get started with how well the vaccinations went this week. Were you guys running the clinics, and how many doses were you able to give out?
So this week, we actually ran 3 clinics. On Tuesday, we did first doses. So we did a total of 5,000. On Wednesday, we did second doses, and Thursday, we did second doses. So over the last 2 days of second doses, we did over 9,000 individuals that needed second doses. So a total of 14,000 over the 3 days. So it went very well. I will say yesterday, the weather wasn't cooperating at all, and my staff were in temperatures that were blisteringly, brutally cold temperatures, and the tablets weren't working with us. They were working against us because they were getting wet. And so there was a lot of issues on our side, so we apologized to the community. But we kept thinking they're in a warm car and we're outside, so hopefully they can bear with us till we got through it. And we did. We got an hour delayed. We started at 11. We were going to end at 7, but we ended up going to 8 o'clock because of all the weather issues we were having.
Right. And so is the weather going to affect the vaccinations next week?
You know, we think it might affect the arrival of the vaccines. That's kind of what we're hearing right now, because these bitter temperatures are going to be, everywhere. And so, again, we don't know when they're coming until we see a shipment date. We know we're getting 5,000 next week, but we don't know the date. And so we're keeping an eye on that. But Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are going to be too brutal for anybody to be working in the elements. So we wouldn't have a clinic for those days anyway.
Okay, thanks for updating us on that. It sounds like you guys did an amazing amount of work this week, and I know that we all appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to get into some of the questions we've received over the past week, starting off with allergies and vaccines. And the first question is about whether those with shellfish allergies should avoid taking the COVID-19 vaccine.
So the recommendation is that everybody that can get the COVID-19 vaccine get vaccinated. Food allergy is not a reason to not get the COVID-19 vaccine. So even if you're allergic to peanuts or shellfish or any other types of foods, that is not a reason that you should not get the COVID-19 vaccine. But again, if you feel strongly or you're strongly concerned or you carry around an EpiPen, like I have a niece that carries around an EpiPen because she's allergic to peanuts, I've asked her, speak with the provider before you come. They do come with their EpiPen, and I have had one individual that actually had to use their EpiPen, and we had to transport them to the emergency room so they could be monitored for 2 hours for cardiac. And that's just protocol once they use an EpiPen. So again, it's not a reason to not take your COVID-19 vaccine, but make sure that you're getting your COVID-19 vaccine somewhere where they have EMS, paramedics, people available to be able to help you if you need that help. The one that went to the emergency room, it really was more anxiety. But I tell people, you know your body better than anybody else. If you feel like, for whatever reason, you got the COVID-19 vaccine and you feel like it's starting to get some swelling, especially in your throat, that was her option to use the pen, and she did.
Right, okay, thank you. See, the next question, I'll take a shot at answering it, and then you can chime in with the parts that I miss. So it's about how effective the vaccines are against the variants. And so the messenger RNA vaccines, from what I've been reading, seem to be a little more effective against the variants than vaccines that are based upon other technologies. So Pfizer and Moderna are the messenger RNA-based vaccines. They're still less effective against, say, the variant from South Africa than they are against the older variants, and maybe a little less effective against the variant from the United Kingdom. But overall, they're still pretty effective, maybe above 80% effectiveness. But for the other vaccines, the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson, from what I've read, they're a little less effective against the South African variant at the very least. I don't know, Annette, do you have any additional info on that?
Well, what I'd like to say on that is that we have to be careful in comparing, because when Moderna and Pfizer did their phase 3 clinical trials, there weren't any variants at the time. So they weren't testing against the variant. And so while they looked like they both had, Pfizer had the 95% efficacy and Moderna had 94% efficacy, again, they weren't testing against the variant. So now with Johnson & Johnson, they are testing against the variant, even the B1351, the South Africa variant, and we see a 50% protection, against the variant. So that actually is very good, to be honest with you. 57% protection versus 0 protection is a lot better. So what we're starting to look at now, because this is all new data, we're looking at Pfizer and Moderna, and we're seeing that Moderna may not have that efficacy that we would like to see against the variants. So part of what we're doing as a health department is we're vaccinating against time. So we're vaccinating with that sense of urgency to try to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible. So that's why you see these clinics running very quickly, and I know some people are concerned because they're like, we just got the information and you're having a clinic today, absolutely. We're going as fast as we can to get as many people vaccinated, but we're up against time. And so we want to protect our community as much as possible. And even at 57% protection, you have to remember that is a very good amount of protection against a variant.
Right, and I'm going to delve in a little bit deeper here, and we'll see. We don't test out these answers beforehand, but let's see how this goes. So when you say 57% effective, do you know what that's effective against? Is it just like contracting COVID at all, or is it fatality? What do you know what that 57% is?
The 57% protection is against, they were looking at both the UK, the 117, the B117, and also the B1351. And so and one is more transmissible, the UK one, and then the South Africa, they think it's not only more transmissible, but also more lethal. And so it's specific for that. If you look at transmissive-wise, we're looking at AstraZeneca, just has some news findings showing that it can keep it from transmitting. So that's a very good news for us, because we really didn't know that with the Pfizer and the Moderna. We knew that if you got COVID-19 after you were vaccinated with either one of those vaccines, that you probably wouldn't end up hospitalized, because that's actually what it did. It made the illness less severe. But with AstraZeneca, you're also seeing that it's keeping it. These are the asymptomatic people. They're keeping from being able to spread to other people, which is, again, very promising news for all of us.
Right, thank you. So moving on to the next group of questions on the groupings of our society and their eligibility for vaccines. So the first question is asking how come there's different groupings of people for amongst different states? How come it's not the same for all the states?
And that's a great question. So CDC actually makes the recommendation. So they say for the phase 1A, based on our scientific knowledge, we determined that these individuals are the most vulnerable and these should get vaccinated first. And they started with, and we all agreed, the frontline workers, the people that were hospitalized. But what they do, CDC doesn't make mandates, if anybody knew that. They only make recommendations. But when they make recommendations, we all follow it. And so they recommend this is going to be the phase 1A, and then they develop the different tiers. Then they send that to all the states. Then they know that the states all have different populations, different social determinants of health, if you will, for their state. And so they'll know the governors are the commissioner of health working with the governors to make that determination of how they want to take what they gave as the recommendation and make it their own for their own state, for their own vulnerable population. So ours goes to EVAP, it goes to a panel of experts that go to the commissioner of health for the state of Texas, that's Dr. Hellerstadt, and he decides based on what his information is that he receives from CDC who is going to be in phase 1A and who's going to be in phase 1B, and he's actually determining right now who's going to be in the next phase.
Right, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. So I don't know if you know the answer to this, but people are wondering when teachers will be vaccinated, and then how about people who work for the government or those that work on a military base?
So teachers are already being vaccinated, and I hope this is the same for other groups that work in different, fields, because there's not a group that says teachers, but there is a group in the 1B that says 65 years of age and older, and many teachers aren't 65 years of age and older. They're retired by that time. But there's also in the 1B, it's 16 years of age and older with a comorbidity or any type of chronic medical condition. And so we do have teachers that fit into the 1B. So while there's not a group or a phase that says teachers, waitresses, it doesn't say a specific name, they do fall into a group that they can actually get vaccinated now. So what we believe is coming is probably the 1C. History seems to repeat itself. It looks very similar to what we saw during H1N1, during the swine flu. We had the different, they call them tiers. These are called phases. So the next one would be 1C, and that's probably going to be, because the C used to stand for critical infrastructure. So it'll stand for critical infrastructure, and those are for more like you were asking the people at the base. They are definitely critical infrastructure. We need them. If there's any kind of emergency, we need these individuals. These are all the first responders. They would fall under critical infrastructure. But as well as the people that work at the gas station, those are critical infrastructure, as well as the people that work at the HEBs, the teachers, all of these are critical infrastructure. So by the time we get to the 1D, it's probably going to be anybody else that wasn't in the 1A, 1B, 1C. Now it's 1D, it's the rest of the population. But by that point, almost everybody should have been vaccinated.
Right, thank you. Moving on to vaccine availability. Will the vaccine clinics and mega clinics be on a first-come, first-served basis anymore?
For us, we're trying to go away from that because what we were doing was we were trying to be fair and equitable. The problem was that we had so many people, the demand for it was so high and the supply was so low that we had people camping out, days before the event. And we do not want that for anybody. I wouldn't want it for my family members. I don't want it for anybody else. So what we're doing now is we're trying to schedule people by the hour. We're doing 5 to 6 to 700 people an hour. We just use a blowtorch and we vaccinate everybody. So no, we don't, but we actually do vaccinate you. But we do it very quickly. We have 50 vaccinators, and that's how we can go at that speed. But we're trying to give you blocks so that way you don't have to come so early. I think where I really need to communicate a little better is that when we reverse alert the community, we tell them your scheduled time is 9:30. People are trying to come an hour and a half, 2 hours before that time. They don't need to do that. I've already anticipated that hour and a half before their real appointment time. And so when we say 9:30, they need to come at 9:30. Not at 6 in the morning, not at 4 in the morning, 9:30, because we're trying to keep an even pace and everybody's trying to come early. You're still at the same time even if you come too early. So try to get there when we say this is your appointment time. Try to get there at that time. That would be helpful to us.
Okay, that's good to know. Let's see, which vaccines are coming to Walgreens and HEB pharmacies?
So we're hearing that the pharmacies are going to be getting vaccines. We were told February the 11th. Is that today? Oh, that was yesterday. So February the 11th, we were told that the rollout would happen with the pharmacies getting vaccines. It would still be Pfizer and Moderna because they're the only two that have the EUA. But I believe Johnson & Johnson or J&J, like everybody knows of it, they should be coming out soon, and so they will be getting some of that as well. And Johnson & Johnson is only one vaccine versus the other two, which are the mRNA that you mentioned, Dr. Bird, which require 2 doses.
Okay. And I think I know the answer to this question, so I'll try to answer it, and then if I answer it incorrectly, you can correct me. But there's a follow-up wondering, do they have proper requirements for storing the vaccines? And I can only surmise that you're not going to get the vaccine as a distributor like Walgreens or CVS unless you have the proper equipment in place to store it.
That's absolutely correct. And I think what they're learning too is that, we thought all these places needed the ultra low freezers. To be honest with you, even when we received Pfizer last week, which all of our doses have been Moderna except for that 1 week where we were helping Christmas Bond to move their vaccines. When we received it, we never even put it in our ultra-low freezer. We took it right into our refrigerator because the goal, again, is to vaccinate with that sense of urgency. So we knew we needed to thaw it out and get it in people's arms.
All right. So people in Puerto Rico are wondering when the vaccine is going to be available there.
Well, now that we're hearing that the pharmacies are going to be receiving, as of yesterday, they should be receiving them any day, in my mind, because all of these pharmacies, including CVS, and just so everybody knows, CVS has already been vaccinating, but they were tasked with vaccinating the long-term care facilities. So they were busy on another goal, which was a very, very, probably one of the most important goals, was to vaccinate these people that we all cherish. And so they were vaccinating the long-term care facilities. So now that they're going to be receiving vaccines directly to their pharmacies, they'll be setting it up, probably appointments like HEBs and all the others. And so we're excited about that. The Puerto residents, kind of like the phases, they're part of us too. So they can always come to one of our clinics, or they can go to San Pat. They're not restricted by jurisdiction. They can go anywhere the vaccines are close to them, and they can go. We actually had last week, I think we had 201 people that we vaccinated from out of state. And so they managed to find us. I think we're there. We're in a really good location off of 77. Is traffic sometimes a nightmare? Yes, but you still get vaccinated.
All right. And some other people are wondering, when is this Johnson & Johnson one-dose vaccine or any other brand of one-dose vaccine going to be available?
So it should be any day. I think it went to FDA for EUA, for emergency use authorization, on February the 3rd, if memory serves me correctly. And so I believe any day that they're going to be getting the approval. I don't know the date that the committee was going to be meeting, but I think it's any day, and it's going to be very soon. And so people that are only wanting to get a one dose and not have to see us again, you can wait for Johnson & Johnson, and we should get some of that vaccine as well. We'll get you vaccinated as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I just want to point out it's kind of reassuring to see that there seems to be a lot of people that are interested in getting vaccinated. We want to make sure everybody realizes that it's safe. There's been millions of people vaccinated in the United States at this point, and a very low proportion of people having negative side effects, and no fatalities or anything like that from getting vaccinated. Let's see. All right, so we're done with the major questions, but this is important too. So we've been talking about our attempts to get in shape in that, and I was wondering if you have a progress update this week.
I definitely do have progress update. So if you want to get in shape, you can come volunteer with us and work at one of these mega drive-thrus, and you get to walk miles. I need my watch back. This is to my sister. If you're watching this, please mail me back my watch that tells me how many steps I've taken. So she and I switched watches before COVID-19, and so I haven't had my watch. I have a real beautiful one, but I need my watch, my Apple Watch, that actually tells me how many steps I've taken, because we have walked hundreds, if not thousands, of miles the last 3 days, just trying to make sure everybody's doing the right thing, and if people need help, we're trying to reach out to them and walk to them. And so you can join us. You can volunteer as for traffic, or to answer questions, or to check if they have their password on their vehicle. and you will be walking, at least once or twice or 3 times a week, and it actually helps.
Yeah, and I've fit in about 30 miles of bicycling before work in the mornings this week. For those that bicycle, I mean, it's not that far, but it's about an hour and a half of cycling. So that's been keeping me at least at the same weight and not gaining.
I've lost 1 pound, so I mean, it took thousands of miles it felt like for 1 pound, but hey, I'll take 149 anytime over 150.
All
I'm
right.
still watching it every day. I really I need to be at 127, so.
Yeah, congratulations. My goal is to get out of the 1B category based upon weight.
That's a good goal.
Okay, Jason and Tiffany, do we have any questions from the audience?
I don't see any. Quite a change from last week.
Everyone's hands are frozen.
Okay.
Mine too.
All right, then. Well, on that note, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. The next task force report will be uploaded today at 2:30 to social media. Please join us every Friday at noon for the question and answer session. And remember to direct questions or comments to @CBCovid on social media. Have a wonderful, safe, and warm weekend.
Thanks, everybody.